we discuss real estate and real estate marketing. We discuss property law, right? We discuss rules of marketing real estate, what to do, what not to do, how to earn from real estate. These are the things we're going to be discussing in the Realtors Roundtable. Last week, we had our first section, Monday last week, where we discussed how to get started in real estate. If you've not watched that video, the link is somewhere in this group. After this training, please go and watch that video, right? If you've not watched it, right? But for tonight we're going to be discussing basic property law that everybody should know. Basic property laws that everybody should know with Barrister Raymond Ijeomah. Barrister Raymond Ijeomah is one of the best property lawyers I know. He's also a real estate entrepreneur. Of course, he's going to be introducing himself in a moment whilst I bring him up. If you're ready, of course, we're going to be asking questions. You can leave your questions in the comments. All right, please leave your questions in the comments. Welcome, Barrister Rei's wife, watching from Benin City. Good to have you here, ma. It's a pleasure. It's a privilege to have you here, ma. Right? So please, let's give it up for Barrister Raymond Ijeomah. Welcome, sir. Good to have you here. Good to have you in tonight's section.
Thank you, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right, great. Good evening, everybody.
It's a
pleasure to be here. Myself and Jeff have done a lot of stuff together, both online, and eventually we had to do a real estate transaction physically that we had to travel. So I'm glad to be here. It's always a pleasure. He said my name is Raymond Ijeomah. Yes, that is correct. Even though I don't like to add the barrister before the Raymond Ijeomah, right? And so I'm basically a real estate entrepreneur as well as a property lawyer. And I run the real estate company Fortreal Rei Ltd. And through Fortreal Rei Ltd, I get to do everything that I can do as it relates to real estate in Nigeria. Okay, so I believe you can still hear me. So I'll just go straight to the point. Now, law conversations are, in quotes, always technical. So I am going to try as much as possible to break them down as much as I can. It's not always easy for a lawyer to be teaching law to people who are respectfully not lawyers, right? So I need you to pay attention as much as you can. And importantly, please drop your questions. I'll be available to attend to your questions on this live session. Anything after this live session is consultancy and you will pay for it. I'll be glad to take your money. All right. Okay, so quickly, I like to make you understand the importance of this conversation. I am into the real estate business. I through Fortreal Rei Ltd market properties, and I understand what it means to lose a client. And the real estate business is one that you can easily lose a client. You can easily lose a client because it is capital intensive. And especially if you're the type that is doing built-up properties, and possibly you're not doing all those 1 million naira, 500,000 naira property. And even if it's a 500,000 naira property, that's a lot of money for somebody, right? So if that is a lot of money for somebody, it means that before the person can put it out and send that money to one account number on your account, so because you said so, you are a realtor, you are marketing a property. If somebody has to put out 500,000 naira to somebody else, it has to cost that person. It means it's a big deal for that person. Of course, you don't know how deep the pocket of your client is, so it also means that you can't always assume who the client is or whether 500k is a big deal to the person or it is not a big deal to the person. So what I'm trying to say basically is that that real estate is capital intensive, and since it's capital intensive, it is easy to make somebody not to transfer that money to you or to the company. It is easy to lose the person's interest. I'll give you a couple of instances. When I started up newly in the business of real estate, I pretty much was open to anything. So I had this client who reached out from Canada. I was following him on Facebook. He's somewhat like a mentor to me, right, on Facebook, and he needed a property in Lagos, and it was somewhere he wanted to use as his headquarters in Lagos. And when he reached out, I quickly did, background work and got in contact with another real estate agent, a real estate agent in Lagos, and we got this sweet property. Come on, this man was excited. He was super excited about this. When I sent him the pictures of the property, he was excited. He was happy. He was already calling the place his office in Lagos, right? And me myself, I was happy, of course, But then he asked me one question, asked the other question, and asked the third one, and I didn't have an answer to the third question. I've answered his first question, I've answered his second question, and I didn't have answer to his third question. And I told him that I didn't have an answer, that I'll get back to him shortly so that I'll give him a response. And of course, I shouldn't be lying to him, because lying doesn't just even now make any other sense, because you can also lose him with that. And in fact, you shouldn't be doing that. You shouldn't be doing business through lying, So I eventually reached out to the Realtor. In less than 2 minutes, I got the answer I wanted. The guy in Lagos now. And I reached out to this man again. And meanwhile, I forgot to add that this property was going at 26 million naira per annum. 26 million naira per annum, right? And eventually, when I reached out to him, he didn't respond to me. I reached out on WhatsApp, he didn't respond to me. He opened the message, didn't respond to me. I reached out severally, he didn't respond to me. I went back to Facebook because as a matter of fact, he gave me his number, his direct personal contact, a millionaire in Canada that has businesses in Nigeria. I reached out to his WhatsApp, his Facebook, where he gave me his WhatsApp number from, and called me by himself. He didn't respond to me. He stopped responding to me. And I reached out through that medium. He didn't respond to me. To date, he never replied my messages anymore. What happened? I lost that transaction because I didn't have the answer that he needed. So I'm saying that to let you know that it is very easy to lose a client. It is very easy. Trust me, it takes core investors at heart, or it takes people who really are willing to do this, to want to put out money in 6 figures, 7 figures, 8 figures to do a transaction with you. So it means that you have to be good at whatever you are doing at every point, and not give any benefit of doubt at any point, so that you can close that deal, so that you don't lose that transaction, so that you don't lose that deal, so that you do not lose that transaction. Right? I've had a couple of other incidents, and I'm presently on retainership with a client, a prof in China, who engaged me at some levels. And yes, I'm a lawyer, so let me go do the reverse now. I'm a lawyer, and we had some conversations as it relates to, or arguments as it relates to real estate itself. I am a lawyer ordinarily I shouldn't be knowing so much details about real estate. But then I knew real estate, and it was because of what I knew about real estate, what I wasn't taught at the law school and all of that. That was what led me and led to me being retained for him, and I'm doing transactions for him in several figures, right? So what I'm trying to say basically is that who you are, what you know, stands you out as a realtor. Who you are, what you know, stands you out as a realtor. When I was doing advert for this event this evening, I posted that it's important that for you to sell successfully, you must send that impression, send that message of an authority so that it is easy for a client to trust you, so that it is easy for a client to depend on you, so that it is easy for a client to say, okay, since Raymond said it is this, then it is this. Since Raymond said I should transfer a million naira, then I'm going to transfer a million. Since Raymond said I should transfer 10 million naira or 20 million naira or 50 million naira, then I can do that. I'll give you one last instance, and it basically what I need you to understand the narrative and where I'm going, because when you know what I'm going to share with you today and beyond, of course, I cannot exhaust what we have here today. What I have, it's a book that I'm working on, a complete course that I'm working on, so I can't exhaust it here, right? And then also, I need to also say that I have books on Amazon. I have particularly on Seller. I prefer that you go to Seller to get the books, and some of the thoughts I'm sharing with you here are in those books. So one last instance, I had this client from Russia, from Port Harcourt rather, who for some reasons he reached out to me, and I mean, there are lawyers in Port Harcourt, and I'm presently based in Benin, and for him to leave lawyers in Port Harcourt and wanted me to do a transaction in 7 figures for him from Benin, he saw something. To date, I've not seen him physically, but he trusted me enough, as against the advice of his staff, to handle such transactions. So what I'm trying to say is that what you are learning today and what Jeff is presenting to you today can position you as an authority in the real estate sector, such that you're not. See, one thing that I must let you know is, I'm sure it's pretty much part of what Jeff is going to share with you, is that you are not just an agent. You should see yourself beyond that. You are somebody who is a consultant in the business of real estate, so that when a client is talking to you, he's also seeking your advice. You are not just a salesman. You are an authority in the business. So you know the side, you know what it is to what. Okay, let me focus on what I came here for. So property law, right? So introduction to the conversation. So you cannot separate real estate or property or sales of property or land from the law. The law is a critical aspect of every real estate transaction. The law is a critical aspect of every real estate transaction. You cannot separate law from any kind of real estate transaction. So it means that the best guys in the real estate sector are also the guys who either understand the law or have people who can handle the legal aspect of every transaction for them. So by that I mean that they have a lawyer, a sound property lawyer that handles things for them, right? So you don't handle property transactions as though you are buying an iPhone. You don't just go to the shop and say, okay, I like this phone or I like this pen, and you make a transfer of money for it. So by that, I'm basically saying that property transactions, even though it is a transaction, doesn't end at the transactional level. Property transactions, even though it is a transaction, doesn't end at the transactional level. It goes beyond just transferring money from Mr. A to the company that is selling or to the individual that is selling. And that is where the law comes into play. And it is not complete until the law is fulfilled. And the law that is brought into play as it relates to property transactions is the conveyancing law. It is the property law. So after the client makes payment to the company that owns the property, or to the client that is selling the property, the law has to be invoked. The conveyancing law has to be invoked. That is where a lawyer now prepares title document that transfers interest, that transfers ownership, that transfers title from the guy who is selling to the guy who is buying. So your job as a realtor doesn't end at salesmanship. I need you to put that in your head. Your job as a realtor doesn't end at salesmanship. It doesn't end at this property is for sale. Because trust me, one of the things that you also should, I needed to say that in the beginning, one of the reasons you should also pay attention to the legal angle of every real estate transaction is that you are the salesman. So if anything goes wrong at the tail of the transaction or at the end of the transaction, something goes wrong, whether you like it or not, you are going to be mentioned in the picture because you were the one that advertised that property. You were the one that put out that property for sale. It was through you that the client got to know that property. So that is why it is important that you also know. You don't just come and say, "Oh, it's for sale. The location is good." I tell my audience on YouTube that there are three key elements of buying properties or real estate transactions. Three key elements. Number one, the location. Number two, the size. No, that shouldn't be number two. Number one, the location. Number two, the title, and then the size. The location, the title, and then the size. I also say very often that property transactions are mainly divided into two parts. The property part, which is the land, the physical land itself, and the title part. The property part and the title part. Without the physical property, then there's no title document. You can't be having a conversation about a property and not be having a conversation about the title document. If the title document is defective, then even though you have the physical property, then it's a big issue. I've had there was a time while I was still with my boss, erudite scholar in real estate transactions. There was a transaction that the property that they wanted to sell for years, and they couldn't sell it simply because it didn't have title document. The title document were missing, and my boss had to do certain legal magic, and eventually the property was sold. And the realtor who had been marketing the property for years had to specially come and thank my boss with money. I was the one that went to receive the money, right? Because indeed he knew that even though the property was in a good location, there was no title document, it couldn't be sold. And without the intervention of my boss, that property would never have been sold, because nobody would want to buy a property that doesn't have a title document. So what am I trying to say? I need you to understand this. Everything I need to just pay attention. If you don't get me at any point, please drop a question. I don't mind attending to your question along the line, because I need to take this journey gradually. I need you to understand me gradually. So what am I trying to say? What I'm trying to say is that see the importance, how good the property is, the physical location, how beautiful the area is. See it as important as the title that the property has. We're going to get to the point where I'm going to tell you what actually is a title document, and coincidentally, what are not title documents. For people who are in Lagos right now, I did a video about some documents that you don't have any business using as a title document, but they are used. Some of them are used in Lagos. One of them is used in the East, and you don't have any business. All right, I'll get to that point shortly. Right. So now, I've already told you that you should see the importance of pay critical attention to the importance of title documents as well as the property. So it's not just okay for you to market the property because the location is good. It's also important that as a realtor, if you want to stand out as a realtor, then you should also know the title document in respect of a property, because real estate transactions don't just end at transferring money. The transaction is not complete until property, until interest, until title, until ownership is transferred from the guy who is selling to the guy who is buying. So it means that before the guy who is selling can properly transfer interest, he or she has to possess the capacity to transfer that title. So what it first of all means is that the very first element, the very first law, property law understanding you must have as a realtor is that the person who you are marketing for actually has the capacity to transfer that title. It is one thing for a company to have the right to market a property. It is another for the same company to have the capacity, the competence to transfer interest in that particular property to another person, to a buyer. If you can get me up to this point, I would appreciate 1 or 2 responses. If you are getting me up to this point, I would appreciate 1 or 2 responses. Jeff.
Sir, you are dropping the bombshells.
Okay.
This is powerful already. Please, we are privileged to have him handling this section. As you can see already, he knows his onions, all right? So, sir, please, you can go on. The fire emojis are coming in. The dance emojis are coming in. So we are following, sir. We are following.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much. So I'll just read this out and we'll take it up step by step from there. So unlike buying a pen and it automatically become yours, in real estate transactions, more is expected of you. That is where conveyance comes into play, which is the practice of creating interest and transferring rights in land. Right. So as a realtor, you must. I didn't get the first key element of property law. So again, the first key element of property law that you must understand as a realtor is that before you start marketing a company's property, before you start advertising a property, you must know, you must ascertain, you must be aware that the person you are marketing that property for has the capacity to sell. Capacity to sell, the competence to sell, the competence to transfer title, the competence to transfer title. So that is why for somebody like me and everything we get to do under Fortreal Rei Ltd, we are very choosy about the types of properties that we market. Because before we put it out there, we must have done our investigation to be sure that this is something that will not come back to bite us in 20 years' time. So carefulness is required. First of all, beyond the carefulness, you can't be careful of what you don't know. So knowledge, which is what you are having here, and why you must, all of you, in my opinion, must transfer money to Jeff after this session, because this is saving you a whole lot. This is a lot of knowledge that you need as a realtor. Jeff, you want to drop your account number?
I came to drop my account too.
So the fact that somebody is marketing a property, like I said, we're very choosy. And the reason for that is simple. A lot of persons are out there selling properties that don't belong to them. I can give you numerous stories, numerous instances. We had one time that two brothers, one lives abroad and one lives in Nigeria. Both of them wanted to sell a property, right? And we insisted. The property was in they had it separately. They were both together in the same location, but they had it separately, right? So he sold his own. We didn't have any issue with that. But he wanted to now sell his brother's own. And we insisted that we must speak to the brother who is abroad, and we must get a letter of authority from the brother to sell his property. Because the property is not in his name, in the brother's name, even though they are twins, even though they are, as a matter of fact, even though they are husband and wife, even whatever they are, without the direct authority to sell the property, the person cannot sell it. So if you are the guy who markets the wrong property, then you definitely by law will be joined in the issue when it comes up. So that is why you have to be careful. Before you can be careful, you have to be knowledgeable. You have to understand how it works. You don't have to be a lawyer to understand it. Kudos to Jeff. Jeff has taken his time to study all of this. It's something that we keep learning, So you have to take your time. A session like this is critical. It's important that you pay critical attention to it if you want to be a successful realtor. Right. So this evening, right before this session, I had somebody who wanted to sell a property of over 100 million in you who reached out to me and wanted Fortreal to market the property. And yeah, I mean, we're cool to do that, right? But he's not very familiar with the real estate business. So he's also a lawyer like myself. So he reached out and I told him everything he should ask, the questions he should ask, and things that he should find out for me before we put that property for sale. Right. And this evening he called me back and told me that thank God that he did all of that and that he discovered this evening that the property is encumbered. What does it mean to be for a property to be encumbered? It means that something is wrong. There are different types of encumbrances. And one of the things I discovered is that property has been used to take a big loan. So imagine that as a company that were eventually good, or in the instance, were eventually good with marketing the property, and we successfully sold the property at 100 million. And after the property was sold at 100 million, we discover that, and we didn't do investigation and all of that, and we now discover that the property had encumbrance. Of course, they are going to hold the guy who owned the property responsible. But guess who they are also going to hold responsible? The guy who marketed the property, or the company that marketed the property. So I need you to know that. So the capacity to transfer title is important. I'm also going to show you how to know if somebody has the capacity to transfer title. So let me skip all of this and go to. So one of the first things you should also now understand as it relates to property transactions, in this book, I did 40 terminologies. The title of the book is Don't Get Scammed. You can find it on Seller. I did 40 terminologies that you should know. The title is Terminologies Don't Let Anyone Confuse You. Now, in property transactions, especially when you're doing transactions at some major levels, one of the things that you see is that there are things that come into play. For instance, you get to see concepts like offer and acceptance. Even though at major levels, most of these things are done via emails, letters, and all of that. So the concept of offer and acceptance, I know of this time because a colleague of mine reached out to me from Lagos, who was consulting me on whether on an issue that their company was having as it relates to a property that they already accepted. And when they accepted that property, 2 days later, when they accepted that offer, 2 days later, another company reached out to buy that property with over 36 million extra. So for instance, let me just paint the picture so that you understand what I'm trying to say. So I'm selling the property to Jeff. Or no, myself, and I'm the guy who is buying, and Jeff is selling. So I made an offer of 100 million to Jeff, and Jeff said, okay, we can only pay 50 million. And I have eventually accepted the 50 million. Right. 2 days later, remember, myself and Jeff have concluded on the deal for 50 million. And 2 days later, somebody else reaches out to me and offers me 70 million for that same property. Now, what happens at this point? Can I still go on and sell to the guy with 70 million, whose price, who I'm gaining 20 million extra from, or I should stick to the guy who have given, or who I initially offered 50 million naira to? And that is where the dilemma of offer and acceptance comes into play. So you have to be careful as a realtor, because most of the times you may be the one at the forefront making offers and acceptance. So the fact that you are still doing transactions at 1 million, 500K, 2 million doesn't take you away from the consequences of this. If you have a client who wants to take you up on anything, right? So you have to be careful when you have accepted a deal. You must be careful that you are not breaking that deal at a point where it is critical, because you can be sued and you will be liable to pay damages. So I need you to understand that concept, offer and acceptance, right? And then the easiest way to escape the consequences of offer and acceptance is that whenever you are doing such transactions, you should always ensure that you subject all your terms of contract, you subject all negotiations to subject to contract. That's the concept. Just subject everything you are doing to contract until there's execution. Everything remains at a contract level. If you don't understand that, please let me know. Number two, transfer of title. Transfer of title. What is transfer of title? Well, first of all, we need to understand the concept of title. Please, sir, how do I know if property has been used? I didn't get that. It's has been used as a collateral. Okay, so there are a number of ways to know if a property has been used as a collateral. And that is why, first of all, there are different types of investigation of property. There are different types and levels of investigation. And at the end of the day, it depends on the type of investigation that you get to. It depends on the type of title that the property has that will determine if indeed that will determine the type of investigation that you're going to do. The type of title that the property has will determine the type of investigation that you're going to do. And we also determine whether you will discover that encumbrance or not, or if the property was used as collateral or not. So let me explain. So what that means is that you can have somebody, I can buy property today, and then I use it to take a loan from somebody, and I don't register it. At that point, even though I send a lawyer to do investigation, I may never be aware of such encumbrance. So at that point, it becomes complicated. But thankfully, for a place like Lagos, there are certain levels of investigation. As a matter of fact, they now have what's referred to as a lease pendings unit. So for some other states in Nigeria, it's not available yet. Such systems are not available yet that can help you know whether a case is pending in court. So you can also sell a land that is already pending in court. And ordinarily by law, you're not supposed to sell a land that is pending in court. That is lease pendings, right? That's a technical word, right? So when you do such investigation in a place like Lagos at the lease pendings unit, you'll be able to discover if that party is encumbered. So for a place like Benin or some other places that I don't know, I'm not aware that if they have such things, you may not be able to have such investigation. And that is where physical investigation now matters a lot. Secondly, that now brings you to knowing the type of person you are marketing for, knowing who he or she is. And importantly, this is where I may now advise you, especially when you are doing something at an independent level, to also have a contract that the guy signs before you start marketing the property, so that you are able to escape certain liabilities. Because our system as a country, except if the title is registered, our system as a country is not good enough to help us to make things easy. Data collection is hard in Nigeria. So it's hard for me, apart from certain other important stuff I get to do independently as a lawyer and somebody who understands real estate, it's pretty more difficult for you to know some of these things if you don't do certain things, right? So what I'm trying to drive at is it's sometimes hard, especially if the title is not registered, to be able to know whether a party is a encumbered or not. So you have to go the extra mile before you can be able to ascertain whether a title is a encumbered or it has been used as collateral or not. I would like to move forward. I possibly have to handle that session again as it relates to how to know whether I think it's even a complete part in this book, How to Investigate Title. It's a complete part on its own, and there are different levels, about 9 levels to it. So it's something that we have to take our time to discuss much later.
Okay.
So I wanted to talk about transfer of title. Okay, go on.
Sorry about that. Sorry to interrupt you. I was just saying that I know some of these questions are explained a lot more in your book, right? So is it possible we get a direct link to the book, maybe immediately after this class?
I will do that.
So that we can run through the class on the whole, because I think we're actually running out of time, and I know you have a lot to share with us. There are a couple of other questions. I'm thinking also that we would have a Q&A section at the end of the class, if that's okay. And then a link also to the book so we can learn more.
All right. So transfer of title. Let me rush through that. Now, before somebody who owns a property and wants to sell a property can transfer title, it means that the person has to have it. I need you to cram this in your head. In Latin, it is nemo dat could non habet. But in simple English, it is you can't give what you don't have. Cram this. What's the word? Just find a way to concretize it to your mind. Let it always be there. You can't give what you don't have. So it means that somebody who is telling you to sell a property, if title is not vested in that person, then that person cannot successfully give it to another person. So before you market a property for anybody, notice at the back of your mind that the person, and be sure that the person can give it. First of all, if he has it before he can give it, because if he doesn't have it, then he cannot give it. So it's two things: possession of it and ability to give it, right? So it can be possible that somebody, let me not make it technical, but let me just say it's possible for you to possess it and not have the capacity to give it. So for instance, a minor can own a property. I can buy a property in the name of my child who is 8 years old but doesn't have the capacity to transfer that title. I don't know if you get it. So ownership doesn't always equate to ability to transfer the title, because that child is a minor, even though I bought property in the name of that child and the property is owned by that child. Until the child reaches adulthood, the child cannot successfully or competently transfer title to another person. So the concept is you can't give what you don't have. So whenever you are marketing the property for somebody, always have it at the back of your mind. And how do you know that somebody has title? There are 5 ways that the Supreme Court has stated out that through which somebody can become owner of a property. Number 1, by traditional evidence. So customarily, I can become the owner of a property, right? And by acts of long possession, I can enter a bush, stay there for years, and automatically it becomes my property. Number 2, by acts of long possession and enjoyment, same thing. Number 3, by production of title documents. So if I successfully are able to prove title by way of documentation, then I am also the owner of the property. And by proof of possession or of connected or adjacent land in circumstances. So the basic summary is that how I can become owner of a property is if I inherit it by customary, if they gift it to me by way of a deed of gift, or so apart from customary ownership, every other thing that proves ownership must be in documents. And number 2, it must be in deed. But the fact that it is in a document doesn't mean that the person has the capacity to sell. So one thing you must not pay attention to is certain concepts that make it possible for another person to transfer title. Number 1 is that the person has the capacity to sell. And one way to denote whether somebody has the capacity to sell is if title was transferred to that person. So when you pick a title document, and you look at it and you find out that what is there, for instance, a power of attorney, it is still argumentative as of today. But I know that there are Supreme Court authorities that tell you that a power of attorney is not a title document, because title doesn't flow from Mr. A to Mr. B via a power of attorney. So I am fast. Oh boy. Okay. So always look out for the word transfer. Let me use these 3 terms to just break it down. Number 1, transfer. Number 2, assign. Number 3, convey. What other concepts? Now, if you use the 3 concepts, if these 3 words are not in a document that is alleged to be a title document, then there is an issue. Number 1, transfer. Always have these phrases in mind, that I hereby transfer my possession, I hereby transfer interest, I hereby transfer ownership, I hereby transfer title to Mr. B. If you don't find that concept make sure you make further inquiry. I hereby assign, that is where you have a deed of assignment. I hereby transfer, that is where you have a deed of transfer. I hereby convey, that is where you have a deed of conveyance. So take note of these three concepts: transfer, assign, and convey. What you have in a power of attorney is I give. What you have in a power of attorney is I give authority. I give authority. What you have in a title document should be transfer, convey, and assign. Assign interest. Now, when you look at these three concepts, you would also now appreciate that a survey plan is not a title document. You also now appreciate that a freehold is not a title document. Now, there's this man who owns a real estate company in Lagos. He reached out to me for Fortreal to market their properties, and I looked at the flyer they had, and what they had there was a leasehold. They wrote title. What they had there on the document on their flyer was freehold, title, freehold stroke registered survey. And I told him that, is that all you have? Because if that is all you have, then you don't have a title document, because a freehold is simply a status of a property, but not indeed in itself a title document. Just understand that. It also now means that a leasehold, a lease, the same way you have a tenancy. I have videos on that on my YouTube channel, so you can check it out. Jeff can kindly help me put up the Fortreal TV on so that they would see it. So it means also that a lease is not a title document. A freehold is not a title document. A power of attorney, I have Supreme Court authorities to back that, is not a title document if it's standing on its own. So look out for a deed of transfer, look out for a title document, look out for a deed of transfer, look out for a deed of conveyance, look out for a deed of assignment. When you have these three documents, you are almost sure that the person owns the property. Now, the next thing you should quickly now pay attention to is history of title. So when you see all of this in the name of somebody, when you see assign, transfer, and give in the name of Raymond Ijeomah, then it's by document presupposes or proves, just by the document, first of all, that he owns that property and possesses the capacity to transfer interest in that property. I want to believe that I am being understood up to this point. So, what is a title document? A title document reveals the owner of a land. It gives details of the property and ultimately transfers title, ownership to another person. I will say that again. A title document reveals the details of the owner, gives details of the property. It will also give consideration how much the property was bought, that is, if the property was bought, because you can also get the owner of the property by way of a gift, and there you have deed of gift, right? And then ultimately, it must transfer title, ownership, or interest to the buyer, right? So in the course of checking out whether somebody has a title document or somebody's title document is good or not, one thing you should now pay attention to is recital. Pay attention to the word recital. What recital simply means is history of the land. In simple phrase, how did Raymond become the owner of the land? That is a recital. How did Raymond become the owner of the land? Before Raymond can transfer title to Jeff, the first question you should now ask yourself is, how did Raymond become the owner of the land? That is history of title. So, so my story for that, or my answer to that will now be that, okay, Raymond inherited the property from his father. That is good history of title. Raymond bought the property from Mr. A, and Mr. A bought the property from Mr. D. Mr. D got it from his father, or Mr. D got it directly from the government, right? So that is history of title, right? And then the consideration is the amount you bought the property, and then What else should I say before so let me just quickly talk about some documents as it relates to title documents before I possibly create room for questions, and so that we will all understand ourselves. What is a deed? Okay, generally deed is okay, let me just jump down. Now, the first sufficient title document that you should pay attention to is a deed of partition can serve as a sufficient title document. So it simply puts, a deed of partition comes into play when maybe a father dies, and then the children are able to, the elders of the family are able to share the father, the properties of the father. That is at that point, you as a wise child or son should insist that you prepare, tell your lawyer to prepare a title document, which is now referred to as a deed of partition. And with that deed of partition, which the elders will sign, the son can sell. So when you have somebody who has a deed of partition, then you can mark it as a realtor. And you have somebody who has an asset, you can market. An asset is spelled ASSENT. It is not usually very popular, but where you should now pay attention to asset is when a will is involved. So a will is not a title document, but an asset is a title document. So I wouldn't have to spend time explaining that. But just note that the concept of an asset is important whenever the person talks about a will. So what you should look out for is an asset whenever the person is talking about a will as it relates to a title document. So somebody should not tell you to market any property if all the person has to show you is a will. You have to request for the asset, right? And the next is a deed of confirmation. This is not very popular as well, so I'll skip it. A court judgment can also serve as a title document in some instances when a judge by a judgment confirms ownership of a property. So you can use that sufficiently to sell a property, right? A receipt is not a title document. A certificate of occupancy is certifies or proves that somebody owns. I don't want to explain something here so I don't confuse you. That might be a bit technical. So if somebody says he has title documents and he says he has certificate of occupancy, he has a deed of transfer, he has deed of conveyance, he has a deed of assignment, or he has a governor's consent, these are sufficient title documents that you can safely use to market a property. Decision in process, in my opinion, and my strong legal advice is that you should, as a realtor, not market any property that has a decision in process, because not all decision in process is eventually processed. Not all decision in process is eventually processed, or not all decision in process is successfully processed. So when it is not successfully processed at the end of the day, then you would have marketed trouble. So it is always best to wait till the point where it is completely excised. That is when you have an decision or a gazette. At that point, then you can market the property, right? Yes, I already said the survey plan is not a title document. Allocation papers are not title. Allocation papers, it depends on who. First of all, it depends on who is allocating. So if a company is allocating documents to Mr. A, then that is not in quotes a title document. Now there are some arguments about that, and I'll share my legal opinion. So first of all, for a place like Benin, you have something they call Oba approval. So a community can allocate land to you by a document referred to as Oba approval. So you're buying directly from the community. Now, if you're also buying directly from, I know it happens in so many other places, they can give you a document of allocation, allocating land to you from the community. Now, what they consider that as transfer of title at that level. They consider that as transfer of title at that level. And customarily, it is good to go. But my strongest advice at every point is that you should always corroborate your title document, that allocation, with a title document, in itself. So if all the guy has is allocation paper, and that allocation paper doesn't carry the weight of law by way of a corroboration or by itself power to transfer title, then you have to be careful. And as a matter of fact, I need to see that title documents by strict law must be prepared by a lawyer. That's another thing you must pay attention to. Title document by strict law, by general law, must be prepared by a lawyer. So that's another thing you must pay attention to. So allocation papers, I'm aware, they're not prepared by lawyers, right? But they're just certain proof of certain transaction at certain level. So you must pay attention as a realtor. If it's such that you can avoid, then avoid it. If a company is simply giving allocation letter to an individual, then I won't market that kind of property, because interest has not been successfully transferred. So the transaction is not complete. The guy cannot take a loan with allocation paper. The guy cannot go to bank with approval. So that's where you should pay attention to. What I'm supposed to now deal with is how to know good routes of title. Okay, I think we've done 1 hour, Jeff, so I would attend to questions at this point. I'm sorry I was too fast. I was trying to rush.
I can't even believe that this is free. I can't believe this is free. Please, there are a few questions. You don't know the quality of information Barrister Rei has just shared. There are lots of realtors, even developers at very high levels. Lots of them don't know this. Some realtors were in my office on Friday, and they were just saying these things. They were asking me these questions. Some people will just come and tell you that, oh, I have this estate I'm selling. You ask them, what is the title document on the estate? They'll say, all deed is deed. It's just deed. Or they'll tell you that, so thank you so much, Barrister Rei. There are a couple of questions, please. Let me just go back a bit, if you don't mind, please. Please, if you have questions, please drop in the comments. We've already done 1 hour, and I'm supposed to let him go because he has another meeting. Barrister Rei has another meeting in a short while. So please, just a few questions I'll just put up.
While you are looking for the question, let me say something I forgot to add.
Okay.
In as much as these are technical, some of these things are technical stuff. In as much as some of them are technical, you should sit down. If you want to be a successful realtor, you should sit down and learn them, because it stamps you out.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're going to meet clients who know this thing, and they just want to be sure they can trust you.
Yeah.
So the only point they can successfully trust, and trust me, let me say this very quickly. If you are good at what you do, they can always trust you for other transactions. There are realtors in you, and somebody paid myself and you to travel. I traveled from Benin, Jeff traveled from Enugu to you for a real estate transaction. There are realtors in you.
All the way to you. Yeah.
Somebody paid for my trip, and my guys told I people from here to look for 3 hectares of land in Swamp. So there are realtors everywhere. There are real estate consultants everywhere. So you need to stand out. I was with one. Is this my same man called me at that time, and the realtor was saying so many things. He was saying, there's something he said that didn't make any sense to me. He was saying something like, he said the party doesn't have a CFO, but when the company sells the party to you, they will process CFO. I told him that you don't process CFO for a client that has bought. That didn't make any sense. So when you're having a conversation with an intelligent client, you turn him off by saying things like that. That the one agent was telling me that they are giving deed of agreement. So what's deed of agreement? So you just have to find a way to stand out. There are so many. Thank God, when I have a tush name, Realtor. Realtor sounds very tush. Come on, this is my agent we do, But then there's a difference between agent and agent. Thank God you are calling yourself a realtor. So stand out, know this stuff. Know these things so that your realtor name can, when you talk, your brain too is sophisticated, the same way the realtor name sounds. So not that anybody can wake up and be an agent, but I don't expect anybody to wake up and be a realtor like you and I, right? So that's
true. So Someone is asking quickly, said, how can we confirm a title document was not manipulated?
How do you confirm
Mr.
document
Mr. Ben is asking. Yeah.
Was not manipulated?
Manipulated.
Okay, so what I would advise in this instance is, first of all, if you are in doubt whether a document was manipulated or not. So I've eventually had experiences where, okay, I think for this particular question, I think it's also possible for you to know. Now, if you understand history of title, I don't think this is a lawyer thing. If you understand history of title, that recital I talked about,
Recital.
if you can, it's something I think you guys should just get these books. When you get this book, you understand all of these things. Now, if you understand history of title, you will know a lot about whether a document is manipulated or not. Because first of all, these guys are not very smart. I need you to get that. They are not all that smart. So, for instance, I think I'll give two instances. I had an instance where somebody brought documents to my office, prepared title documents. And when those documents were brought, when the title documents were brought, I looked at it. And when I saw it, I asked the guy, who is he on the list of people who are buying? And he said he was number 4. He was the 4th person to buy the property. And I told him that was not possible. How did I know that? I simply looked at the history, the recital that I talked about. When I looked at it, I knew something was missing. And with the documents he was holding on his hands, I knew that it was not complete. So get the picture. Get this part of the picture. History of title is simply from A to B to C to D to E. If you understand that concept, it is easy for you to know when a document is manipulated or not, because everything must connect. So if they are telling you that it is from here, then it means that if the document is presenting is not showing that, then you know that there's a manipulation. Secondly, if it's not clear enough, if it doesn't look as it's supposed to look, then you know that it is also manipulated. So at the end of the day, to cut the story short, he brought the documents a week back, and from what was now presented, he was number 8. He was number 8. So second instance, this lady brought a woman, hardworking woman, this trader. You know how traders save money and they want to buy property, 800K or so. And she brought the documents. And when I looked at it, I saw that the title document was just all written well, and then they used a blue biro to write the dates on the document.
Yeah.
And in their mind, that is supposed to be the original copy of that title document. So like I said, these people are not very smart.
Yeah.
They are not very smart. So all you have to do is know your onions. When you go the extra mile, it is easy to spot these things. So I told her to go back, that something is wrong here, that I sense foul play. Eventually she came back and told me that the man opened up to her and told her that he has used that document to sell a lot of properties.
Wow.
So one of the ways, and one of the ways so eventually she now gave him original documents of the property. And one of the ways to not get the concept is that usually when a property has been sold, original documents should no longer be in the possession of the owner. It should be given to the guy who is buying. So when somebody is selling a property to you and is now presenting photocopies, something has been done wrong somewhere. So you as a realtor should ask questions. It's sad that when 90% of the time when you are buying a property from a realtor or an agent, when you ask the agent what's the title document, they don't even know.
Don't know.
So that now points back to the whole maybe unawareness thing or ignorance. So how do you know a document is manipulated? Just understand all of these concepts, understand the history of title, know what should be where. When you have gone through, I don't know, it's possible that most realtors don't even know how a deed of transfer looks like. So when you pick a genuine deed of transfer, deed of conveyance, or deed of assignment, you don't know how a certificate of occupancy looks like. Go to a law firm, beg them, talk to them. If not, to give them 5K, give them 5K. Let them show you all of these documents, how they look like. When you study the original, it is easy to spot the ones that are manipulated. I think I'll end it at that.
We have a concept especially in the East, in Enugu here is rampant. deed of lease and deed of sublease. So someone is asking, can you shed a little more light? Now, before you go on with your explanation, one of the things I noticed is that some of these deed of lease or deed of sublease, especially around here, let me talk for Enugu. I live in Enugu, I do business here. Especially for Enugu, it's common, very common. And on several occasions, when I've gone through the title document itself, it's actually a property that has a global C of O, right? I mean, the ones I have seen has a global C of O, and instead of a deed of assignment, they usually give a deed of lease or deed of sublease. So please, would you mind? Okay, let's add the irrevocable. I know you don't like the irrevocable power of attorney thing, but let's add it. Thankfully, we were in Uyo together when they were saying that, oh, they also use irrevocable power of attorney there, and then and they even go ahead to register it. So please, I don't know if you can talk about the both at the same time so that we can let you go, as we have like 2 more questions.
Okay, so so when you are renting a house, there's something referred to as deed of tenancy agreement, rather.
Yeah.
If I can get 1 or 2 responses, I'll be glad to. I'll be glad. Now, that tenancy agreement, the difference. Now, first of all, there's the tenant and there's the landlord, right? And the tenant cannot sell the house of the landlord.
Mm-hmm.
True or true?
True.
Okay. You all say wahala, So the tenant cannot sell the property of the landlord.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, there are certain tenancy agreements that doesn't even allow you to give that property to another person as another tenant.
Mm-hmm.
That is what is now referred to as sublet. You can't sublet that property because it's not your own. Right. Now, a deed of lease by law generally is the senior brother of a tenancy.
Senior brother.
Let me pick. This is a law test. If I can lay my hand on it, I would love to read it. The difference between a tenancy and a deed of lease is that a deed of lease is 3 years and above. A tenancy is 3 years, is 0 to less than 3 years. There are Supreme Court authorities backing it, right? So now, that is the reality. I wanted to quickly, so that you just, a lease. Can we see features of a lease? Okay, hold it there.
Yeah.
Features of a lease. A lease is a grant of lease above 3 years. Jeff, can you see it?
Yeah, we can see it. We can see it.
You can see it, right?
Yeah, even though it's not that clear, but we can see it. It's not that clear though. I believe.
All right.
Yeah.
A lease is a grant of years above 3 years. The title to the land is not conveyed. Only the use and occupation is transferred. Only the use and occupation is transferred. All right, so I'll leave it at that. So what am I trying to say with this? That generally, a lease is not a title document. while I'll now let me go to the power of attorney so that I'll now summarize both of them together. So now for a power of attorney is an errand boy. A power of attorney is used to send somebody on an errand. So for instance, I live in the US and I have a property in Nigeria. And for some reasons, I'm not physically available to sign a document. A power of attorney is used to send. So let's say, for example, I live in the US and Jeff is in Nigeria as a realtor. So I can, by way of a power of attorney, authorize Jeff to sell a property for me. Can Jeff sell that property to another person? Yes. Does it belong to Jeff? No. Is it a title document for Jeff? No. It is an instrument authorizing Jeff to sell on my behalf. Right? Instrument. So the concept is, with a power of attorney, I cannot give title to Jeff. I cannot sell that property. There are these two things I just discussed with you. Supreme Court is the apex court in Nigeria, and there are authorities backing everything I just said. So by way of a power of attorney, I cannot sell property to you. Now, I've realized that there are jurisdictional issues in Nigeria. So you have a place like Lagos, there are certain small changes that are made, right? While for a place like the East, I've discovered that there are also other certain differences that are made in the East. As a matter of fact, it was even when I was serving that I realized that they use a power of attorney to sell property indeed, because I did my first property transaction there. And so one thing I've now discovered is that you need to understand the concept of a power of attorney. And when you understand it, like I said, I can authorize Jeff to sell for me. For instance, I'm a family. Our family has a lot of land. I can authorize a real estate company to sell my properties, to transfer title for my properties. Do we get that concept?
Yeah.
So if the real estate company is selling that property for me, so I'm Raymond Ijeomah family, and Jeff is Browdy Limited, and I authorize Jeff to sell for my family. In that context, power of attorney is not a title document. Power of attorney is an instrument of authority. The title document really can be a deed of transfer. So let's say, for instance, somebody sold to my family. That is the title document. So in selling that property, in Browdy selling that property, Browdy should reference the deed, the title document, or should reference inheritance, which is the medium through which my family got hold of that property in terms of ownership. But not that Browdy Limited is using title that power of attorney as title document. In that context, it is not a title document. It looks complicated. I don't know, Jeff, if you understand. I need somebody else to tell me they understand. Jeff, you are already familiar with this whole thing. So
I am familiar with
however, I'm waiting for that response. Anybody can tell me if they understand, apart from Jeff.
Please, who else understands? If you understand, let us know in the comment section. If you want to know, someone is asking what textbook or law report is that you were reading.
You go law school.
Please, we just need the links to your books.
I will drop them
so that we can read more on that. Please, who else wants
you can also check.
Who else wants Barrister Rei to come back again? Please type 2 in the comment section if you want Barrister Rei to come back again. You should come back and trash out a few of these things for us after we have read his book. Who else wants him to come back? Just type 2 in the comment section. Let's see. I have posted a link to his YouTube channel. It's called Fortreal TV. Fortreal TV.
Okay.
I posted the link in the comment section. Please go there and see some more. I'm just trying to not take so much of your time because of it's almost 8:30. I remember you have a meeting by 8:30.
I have a video on title documents.
On,
I have a video on power of attorney on the YouTube channel. Just search for them and you will get them. So let me just summarize that point by saying that based on the East, based on for a place like Uyo, they now have, like I said, Benin has approval, right? Oba approval, right? Community approval. But the truth about it is, I tell my clients that in the face of, I always say that get this concept I'm going to share with you now. I always say that in the court, in my opinion, and you can quote me, in my opinion, the court is not actually a court of justice per se. It is a court that looks at facts and figures presented before it. So it is based on what you present before the court that will determine whether you will get justice or not. So I always advise my clients that, for instance, you buy property with approval from the Oba or from communities, since you are buying from a community, always prepare what is generally accepted as a title document, which is a deed. So for a place like the East, the two transactions I've done in the East, I prepared a title document alongside, which is a deed. So what I would just advise, if a property, because I realize that it is recognized in some part of the East and you can also register it. So what me as Raymond would advise any client to do is, if that document, which is now referred to as a lease, a deed of lease, has a C of O, no problem. If it doesn't have a C of O and it is registrable, it can be registered, advise your client to register it so that it is legally recognized in that jurisdiction, that document is valid and recognizable. And then lastly, if you are at liberty, where you prepared deed of lease, where since you are doing the transaction in the East, prepare the deed of lease to fulfill all righteousness for the Easterners. Then prepare a deed of transfer. Or a deed of assignment to now cover Nigeria as a jurisdiction, Nigerian property law as a general, as one jurisdiction. So that way, if they say wahala too much, where your deed of lease, you are ready. Wahala too much, where your deed of assignment. You are ready. So that way, you are covered on all ends. But if it's not your power to do all of that, no problem. But just make sure that is not just a deed of lease. I remember one instance that Jeff reached out to me and said a family wanted to sell a property to somebody, one of his clients, and then it was a deed of lease that was presented. That deed of lease was simply and purely from a family. In that instance, you don't have any business selling that kind of property. That is simply a lease. They can wake up and as a matter of fact, I remember that lease, they wrote that it was reviewable. It was something like that. How am I buying the property from you and you are telling me that I will be paying rent, I'll be renewing the second of statement? So that for that kind of one, you don't have any business doing that as a Realtor. But if it's the type that is registrable, it is recognized and has C of O connected to it, then you can go ahead. Since for that jurisdictional, satisfy that jurisdiction. But if you come to a place, any other place apart from the East, and they are telling you to use deed of lease, don't listen to that stuff. The same thing with Lagos. I told this client straight up, you don't have any business using a deed of lease in Lagos to sell a property. Then go and watch that video I used on deed of lease. I did it last month on deed of lease. I explained it. I used a board. My board is here. I used a board to explain deed of lease. So just watch it and you understand everything.
Thank you so much, Barrister Rei. I think we'll let you go. Madam Tina said, "Thank you so much, Barrister Ray. I have gained so much tonight." Kai, this is powerful. Tonight's section is powerful. I can't stop listening to you and reading and watching your videos or gaining from you. You are amazing. Thank you so much for sharing this. I'm about to close the deal. Now I have to know exactly what I'm closing so I don't get into trouble. Yes, this is why knowledge is important. I'm going to let Barrister Ray go now because he has another meeting. But this is why knowledge is important, and this is why what we do here in the Realtors Roundtable. And thankfully, Barrister Ray has accepted out of his magnanimity to always visit us from time to time and share this experience from us. Meanwhile, he's going to leave links to his books in the comment section. I'm going to project it, or we're going to make it a full post that you can go and get a hold on those books and study them. When you study them, you have information. When you have information, you sell with confidence. Like you said earlier, some clients just want to know if you know your onion. They know the thing, but they're asking you so that they just know how much of this thing you know. And when they see that you know, their confidence in buying from you goes up. All right. Thank you so much, Barrister Ray.
Let me give. I'm looking at my stock now, seller. I recently reviewed the prices. Don't Get Scammed is going for 3K5. Goodbye to Land Wahala is going for 4K, and the Real Estate Edge is going for 2K. So altogether, that's like how much? So if anybody is willing to get the book from this group, I would give the three of them. Real Estate in Nigeria is free. I'll give one. Don't Get Scammed 3.5. Goodbye to Land Wahala 4K, and Real Estate Edge. I'll give all of them for 5K.
Wow, really? Kai,
Yeah.
please clap in the comment section. Put some. Thank you so much, Barrister Ray. We totally appreciate that. We need to grab that today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, your file is for 48 hours. After 48 hours,
it goes back off. Please, how do we get it, sir? I'm
forwarding a link to you right away on WhatsApp.
Okay. So here's his number. This is Barrister Ray's WhatsApp number. This is WhatsApp number. So please copy down the number right now and then reach out to him so that he gives us the discount link. I'm sending a message ASAP right now, sir. I want that discount link too. I hope you learned. I hope you learned something. If you did, let me know in the comment section. If you good to have you here, thank you, Messi. Thank you, everybody, for joining tonight's class. Please go and rewatch the video and get his books, and also watch some of his videos also on his channel, Fortreal TV. Fortreal TV is the name of his channel. You can go there, watch some of the videos. I appreciate your time. Enjoy a fantastic evening, and bye for now.